We're going to come to order here this morning. Please call the roll.
Chair Greyer.
Here.
Vice Chair Riggs. Here. Representatives Barnes. Here. Baker. Boggs. Here. Cups. Present. Deaton. Here. Gunby. Johnson. Smith. Here. Trent.
Okay, we have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and go right into executive session. And we are going to take up House Bill 1579 first by Representative Mayhew. Is there any discussion on House Bill 1579?
Refresh my memory. It's been a long couple of weeks. Refresh my memory what this one is about.
This is the R&D tax credits. Research and development. Correct. And research and development.
Can I ask a question about how they're going to get that?
Please,
I'm just saying I did, so
Oh, okay.
I do recall what it was about.
Okay, all right. Any other questions from the committee here? No other questions? All right. Well, then I move that we adopt House Bill 1579. Please call the roll.
Chair Greyer.
Aye.
Vice Chair Riggs.
Aye.
Representatives Barnes.
Yeah.
Baker. Aye. Boggs. Aye. Cups. Yeah. Deaton. Aye. Gunby. Aye. Johnson. Smith. Aye. Trent.
All right, by your vote of 9 yes, 0 no, you have due passed House Bill 1579, excuse me. All right, we will now take up House Bill 1685. Are there any comments, questions from the committee on House Bill 1685 related to the so-called time zones?
Time zones. Gotcha.
All right. Well, I move that we do pass House Bill 1685. Call the roll.
Chair Greyer.
Aye.
Vice Chair Riggs.
Aye.
Representatives Barnes.
Aye.
Baker.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Cups. Yeah. Deaton. Oh, okay. Gunby. Aye. Johnson. Smith. Aye. Trent.
Okay, by your unanimous vote of 9 yes, 0 no, you have voted to do pass House Bill 1685. We will now come out of executive session, and we are going to have a public hearing on House Bill 2203. Representative Fitzwater, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Glad to be here. Travis Fitzwater, 49th District here in Missouri. And I'm proposing House Bill 2203 to you, which is basically the easiest explanation is it extends the sunset of this program that's due to expire next year. And then it expands it to apprenticeships to allow businesses to access more opportunities for training for high need jobs across our state. And if you are in touch with any of your businesses locally, you know that workforce development is a huge issue. So what we've seen from the workforce, from the Fast Track program over the last couple of years is that it's been highly effective. The training is going to nearly 80% of women, which is a fascinating development in finding out who is getting access to the program. So it's highly sought after by women. There are, for the training programs, there are about 70,000 open jobs just in the state of Missouri around these programs that are necessary. And so I think extending this is important because workforce development has always been a priority for me. A couple years ago, I was the sponsor of the adult high school bill, which provided opportunities for adults to go back to high school, have some child care provided because that's a huge barrier for most students that are adults. And they also got workforce training on top of that. So workforce development and then computer science stuff that I've carried in the past has been a big deal. So workforce issues are important to me, and I think this needs to be extended. It's been shown to be increasing every year, but now that there's this end date, it's a lot harder to recommend a program that's got an end date because it provides instability to students who are relying on figuring out how do they pay for their education. And so this is one good way, in my opinion, to do so. The bill has several minor parts. The biggest, I think, is the two things that I mentioned, the extension of the sunset and then extending it out to apprenticeships. So be glad to take any questions. I know there are witnesses here to testify on it, but with that, be glad to answer.
Thank you, Representative. Are there questions from the committee? Yes. Member Barnes.
What? I'm sorry. To inquire.
Proceed.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, sir.
Hi.
Good. When is it due to expire?
Yeah, 3 years after August 28, 2019, so the end of this year.
It expire August 28th
Yes.
this year? Okay. And you're trying to extend it to when?
We're just removing the sunset, so we want to make it a program that the government supports ongoing.
Oh, just remove the sunset.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all for, workforce development. I love it. We find some innovative ways to get people employed, start a job, or start a business. That's where I am. Has there been any feedback against removing the sunset?
Not as of yet. I mean, this is the first hearing I've had on this side. I know the Senate has a version of this as well.
72?
I don't know. I don't know the number, but that may be it.
Senate Bill 672.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have anything else right now.
Okay. Any other committee members? Yes, Representative Gumby.
To inquire, good morning.
Hi.
So the individual gets the grant and then they decide what program they want to opt into. Would
Yeah,
all the programs accept the grants?
You have to be approved right now as it stands, and this is a point worth making, is the program is connected to 2-year and 4-year institutions, so they're only through that, and there are some conversations about whether you extend programs to further approved training programs. So programs like ambulatory care. Right now we have a huge shortage of ambulatory care professionals. We have shortages across healthcare, and there's a lot of need in this space. So there's an idea to include any apprenticeship program that is connected to or is approved by the Coordinating Board of Higher Education in the state of Missouri. Therefore, you expand the opportunities for people to get training in the state of Missouri that in high need areas like healthcare, like manufacturing, like construction. Some of these areas of need. What the program has hit really, really well thus far are health, computer science, accounting, business, and education. Going forward, we really need more health, a lot more health. We've been through this weird time. Manufacturing, construction, and truck drivers is kind of what our state needs as far as our workforce development. So I think, in my opinion, we should provide opportunities through a bunch of different paths as far as that goes. But right now, this is really only through a 2- and 4-year institutions.
So it's through, you couldn't go to pipe fitters?
No. I don't believe so.
Because it seems to me we've got a big infrastructure bill that's just been passed, billions of dollars coming, and you're going to need those kinds of jobs.
I know that there's a Senate committee substitute that expands the programs beyond the 2- and 4-year institutions according to what's approved by the Coordinating Board of Higher Education under workforce needs in the state, which would allow programs like that, if they're approved by the state, to get access to fast track. So there are conversations around that. I'm certainly open to that, and I think workforce development. I actually was in Ayers Pizza picking up pizzas the other night right here in town. It's not my district; it's just outside my district, and a business owner from Fulton came in to grab a pizza as well. He's coming back, taking his kids to a sporting events in Springfield, and he stopped at Ayers'. And they have a manufacturing facility that's one of the best businesses in Fulton, Dan User Equipment. And they manufacture large large machines. And he said our two biggest issues right now are supply chain and workforce. We cannot get workforce. We cannot get workers. And if you know Fulton, Missouri, there's 15,000 people in Fulton, Missouri. You know, it's not a huge workforce training pocket. And so, you know, these businesses are begging for opportunities to send their folks to training programs to get the training they need to do all kinds of things across the spectrum, whether it's welding, whether it's healthcare needs, whether it's driving vehicles. Across the board, we have huge workforce needs. So I'm more than happy to discuss how do we make it available for more training programs that are approved through our coordinating board.
Right. I mean, to me, I would think that would be really helpful to expand it to all. You know, we're pushing VOTEC, vocational training programs, all those kind of highly skilled jobs. And since we've got 10 years of building stuff,
Yeah.
I would hope that those programs could be included. So, yeah, I'd like to talk to you about that. If that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm more than
thank
happy
you.
to talk to anybody about changes they see fit.
Any other questions from the committee? Representative Cups?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to kind of continue that conversation, I do know from personal experience that a lot of the two-year schools that are discussed, that, and seemingly the ones that are, correct me if I'm wrong, but that are used the most in this particular program, do have like very targeted, direct vocational pathways and programs that actually are exactly like what you're discussing. And I'm not one to say that that couldn't be maybe expanded, but I do know that a lot of the two-year schools, they have even so much as different certificate areas. You know, it's kind of designed a different way, and they work with the businesses to kind of tailor and cater. I know there's some people in the room that maybe could speak to that better, but Crowder College in our area, perfect example. OTC, perfect example. You know, they work with those businesses to kind of help craft those programs to be exactly what the industry is kind of looking for. So,
Any other questions from the committee? Yes, Representative Box.
So as I'm listening to conversation is how I ended up with this question. So what about those places where people are able to go to work and that is their training, and then once you get them trained, they move on? Is there any I guess gate or anything that would make those kind of businesses an incentive to hire these new people to train? Because you know it's thin picking right now. So
Yeah.
sometimes you go back through your list and you find yourself the trainer.
Yeah. So in the statute that's already written, one of the changes on page 5, it becomes a loan program if you leave as soon as you get the training. So I think it's a 3-year, pretty sure it's a 3-year period where you have to remain in the state and work in the state or continue on in your education, or it becomes basically a loan. So there is actually kind of a...
Okay, so yeah, so you made my point really well. So if we were training these people, is there any, I don't know if it's teeth or any hold that we could create that would say, hey, we will hire you, we will train you, but you're going to have to commit to a certain amount of time. So,
Yeah, that's already in the statute. So it becomes a loan if you don't fulfill the requirements set out in page 5.
okay, but that would.
So they have to pay it back. So it's basically a clawback of the loan dollars,
Okay.
of the award grant dollars.
But this here wouldn't necessarily apply to someone like a business that is starting people and teaching them as they go, unless they got approved.
Well, I think if this is extended to apprenticeship programs and they send their apprentices to, if we were to change this to extend it to that, and they were to go to an approved program, then yes, they'd have access to it in the event that we change it to apprenticeships. That's kind of the point, is that we want to we want to make it available for as many businesses as possible because we all have businesses that are having workforce shortages. So we want to extend it to programs that are connected to schools, not just the schools, but programs that are approved through the Coordinating Board of Higher Education under our workforce needs in the states, the highest needs we have for our workforce training. So I think that's the whole point of what we're trying to do is try to get businesses access to the opportunity to send apprentices to these certificate programs, these approved programs.
Okay. Could we talk more about this offline?
Sure. Yeah.
right.
Anytime.
Thanks, Chairman.
Any other questions from the committee? Representative Baker.
To inquire, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, gentlemen.
Hey.
Quick question. I'm always in tune to figure out whether we have some kind of a cost analysis benefit to show for the money that we've paid out for this program over the past few years. I think this, the apprenticeships and all that's a great idea. I think, obviously we have a crisis in the workforce, but I'm also careful to make sure that we're getting something back for that money. What do we have to show for the past 3 years?
That's a great question. And there'll be witnesses that can kind of dive a little bit more deep into the numbers. But in 2020, and this is relatively new. I mean, this started at the end of 2019, right? So there's basically been 2020, 2021. It's been 2 years. So the first year on November 30th, 2020, there were 113 students, $270,000 awarded, so about $2,400 average award. Excuse me. In the following year, November 30th, 2021, 247 students, $650,000 awarded, and about $2,600 average award. Their top programs were health, computer science, education, business/accounting. There's 70,000 annual openings in these areas, and 79% was female, 21% male.
Wow. I think that pretty much answered my question. Moving forward with this, with the removing the sunset, it seems as though that they're wanting to add FTEs. I mean, what's the reasoning there as far as is the program expected to expand that much where they need that, more employees to cover the program, or I mean, how come
I think
we can't continue what we've had?
Yeah, and I'm more than happy to, if you have language on, a new sunset, let a future legislature come in and have some discussions. I'm open-ended on language there. I think there's been interest growing in the short time that it's been available, but the interest is also going to wane because at the end of this year it's just gone. The program's gone. So I think there needs to be some stability for students. You just can't say, hey, you apply for this, but it may be gone next year. You start a program that may be 2 years that it's very costly, requires tools, requires equipment, requires an investment on the front end. I think the point of having an open-ended or having a longer sunset than maybe a couple years is to provide some stability to students so they're not under the gun. So I think as interest grows, there's certainly going to be an expansion of the need for government employees to be in charge, and I think you and I would both agree that's not the most thrilling part of it. But as interest grows, that's going to be important is to manage it well.
I'm all for that as interest grows. I think I'm always cautious to go back and look, and if we said let's put a 5 or 6 year sunset on the next one, I think that would give more time for that to see. I don't know. I think it's always a good idea to be able to go back and review
Sure.
and adjust accordingly and to make sure we're getting that
Sure,
benefit.
and I'm more than happy to discuss that.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Representative. Are there any here to testify in favor of House Bill 2203? And if you would please remember to fill out a witness form up there and turn it into us. Thank you very much. When you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, my name is Leroy Wade. I'm with the Missouri Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development, here to speak in favor of the bill. Again, including apprenticeships is an important expansion for this program. As was discussed earlier, only students who are attending public, nonprofit, privates, or virtual institutions are able to participate in the Fast Track program. This change that's being proposed would allow students participating in registered apprenticeships, again, on-the-job kinds of training, to be able to participate in the program. What that does in particular is it allows them the program to be able to pay for some of the costs that may be a barrier for some of these students, for supplies, equipment, tools, those kinds of things, for those on-the-job training kinds of things. So in terms of removing the sunset, as the sponsor indicated, the short sunset has really been kind of a headwind for this particular program. Students and advisors have been reluctant to advise students to participate in the program without knowing whether it's going to continue on for the duration of their program. And so by either removing it or extending it would relieve that situation and allow the students to have the confidence to be able to continue through their program. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Yes, Ranking Member Barnes.
Inquire.
Proceed.
I'm sorry, I missed, you say you was with what organization?
I'm sorry, I'm the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there others here to testify in favor?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Kara Corches on behalf of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry in support. As you can imagine, one of the most frequent comments that we hear from members is that they have open jobs, but they can't find the right people to fill them. It's not just about the workforce shortage, but also a skills gap, which means the type of skills the employers are looking for versus the type of skills that are available in the workforce pipeline. And so we need to do everything we can to address that gap. And we believe that Fast Track does help address the skills gap. Getting this passed initially in 2019 was a priority of ours, and the reauthorization of it is another priority this year. We know that every year we pull our CEOs across the state to hear from them about what issues keep them up at night, and year after year, workforce availability is a top concern. And in 2021, when we pulled them in the fall, that statistic astronomically rose. So that concern with the workforce availability is growing, and we know that it takes a variety of tools to address our workforce shortage and skills gap. There's not just one single golden ticket. We need all the tools in our toolbox, and the Fast Track program is a vital tool. We really do appreciate the change relating to apprenticeships. I think, as the representative stated, Missouri is leading the nation in apprenticeships right now, and we want to continue on that trajectory. And especially this model helps individuals who may not be able to leave the workforce if they have a family to support. It helps them earn as they learn. They get paid while they're receiving on-the-job training, and then the employer can fill a spot immediately. So we think it's a win-win model and support every effort to expand utilization of apprenticeships across the state. So for these reasons, we're in strong support, and I'm happy to take any of your questions.
Thank you very much, Kara. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Are there others here to testify in favor?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mitch Davis with the Kansas City Chamber, United Women Empowerment, and the Metropolitan Community College. Like Kara said, our employer clients are in support of anything that gives them a tool to have more skilled workers. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for this witness by the committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much. Others here to testify in favor? Is there anyone here to testify in opposition to this wonderful bill? Is there anyone here to testify for informational purposes only?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Brent Hemphill. I'm here representing the Missouri Ambulance Association. I woke in late, so I didn't hear the sponsors' comments. I would encourage you to consider including affiliated organizations or schools. And so, if I may, the Senate did the very same thing. So I represent ambulance districts, hospitals, things like this. We are in a dire need for EMTs and paramedics. A lot of these schools are ran by ambulance districts, fire districts, hospitals, but do not qualify for a Fast Track because they aren't connected to a university or community college. These are highly trained individuals. These are schools that will meet the accreditation requirements that we are more than willing, which would be DHSS under our purview. And so we really need to try to encourage young people and folks seeking a different career path opportunities to get into EMS. And this is just one of the many tools that we're trying to use. And so I would just ask for your consideration, respectfully, that you would include affiliated programs and allow those to be connected to a college, a community college, and or a university, which currently some do. I think we have about 10 that already are affiliated, but most are not. And they run their own, and they're very highly trained. They come out very good, but because of the dire need for these folks in our industry, we're really looking for any incentive to get these folks into the EMS world. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Yes, Representative Riggs.
Mr. McQuarrie. Thank you. I'm just kind of curious, what's the geographic distribution of these non-affiliated programs?
Depends. So like Pettis County Ambulance District, they obviously would serve the county in and of itself. They have an affiliation. Well, they don't have an affiliation. State Fair. So Missouri Southern has a program. I think there are about 12 either higher ed universities that train these, but so many of them are hospital-based, like Cox, Mercy, Christian in St. Louis. They run their own EMS programs, but don't qualify for this scholarship program because they're affiliated with the university or a community college.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the committee? Yes, Representative Boggs. Proceed, please.
So, just real quick, your thoughts on the sunset side of this. So, that isn't even something that you're concerned or worried. You're more just wanting to open the gate, as I was speaking earlier, for a little more opportunity, right?
Well, I think the sunset needs to be done just basically because it is sunsetting. The program would cease to exist.
I mean, as far as extending it or eliminating it. I mean,
I would prefer to eliminate it. It would be my preference, but you're the legislators. That's a debatable item, and so.
Sure, that's just a question I had, and so that.
Anytime you put a sunset, it just kicks the can for another debate down the road that jeopardizes the future of a program if it works or not. So.
Yeah, well, and so there's two things it does. It gives you a stopping point to look back,
Sure.
which is one thing. So, I was just sitting here thinking, if we was to open this gate to let someone else in, and we was to apply a new sunset, then that would give us a point of return to go, okay, this was a bad idea, or this was a good idea. So I was just thinking, in that point, would you be willing, if that gate was open, to put a stop and another restart?
It would be my opinion that, and this is just because I've done this for a very long time, so I apologize. You meet every year. If you don't like a program, you can always get rid of it. A sunset kind of forces you because you have that hard line, well, we got to deal with it. It's kind of like the FRA program that you all have dealt with over the special. But it created a whole bunch of other ancillary problems that you lost just debating the sunset. And I wouldn't want this program. If it's a bad program, just file a bill and get rid of the program. You can do that every year. And so I've always been a little, sometimes I like them, sometimes I don't. With term limits, it's amazing when you see them because, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but FRA has been around for 30 years. And guess what? Last year it became extremely controversial. Why? Because the sunset was sunsetting. And so it brought all these other ancillary issues. And so it got involved in politics rather than the policy discussion.
All right. Thanks. Thank you.
That was a long-winded discussion on that. But, I mean, if you want to kick the can, so be it. But at some point, it's going to come back around and you have to deal with it again.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the committee members? Oh, yes. Wait.
Thank you for coming, sir, and testifying. I kind of agree with you there. If I'm in need of some EMT or emergency medical assistance or an ambulance, when I make that call, I would like to get one as soon as possible. But with the shortage going around, it's a dire need, and so I'm in agreement with you. I think
Yeah, the pandemic is, as you all have seen from hospitals, and I represent hospitals as well. So the paramedics, because they've had to go so far in transporting, we have most of my administrators are usually in the office pushing paper and, you know, dealing with the administrative side of it, or in the back of an ambulance, because they just don't have the personnel anymore. They're getting to be older, but we need to get a new young folks in the EMS to serve. And now I will say, EMTs don't make a lot of money. We obviously like to encourage paramedics, which is advanced life support, higher trained, but it's obviously more costly to try to train those folks. So absolutely. I mean, Kara with Chamber, I mean, everybody's seeing this across all spectrums of industry, but I think everybody, when they dial 911, wants an ambulance to show up pretty quickly, and we're having a hard time doing that.
And not only that, you know, that position is just not for everyone, you know, and my son.
A lot of stress in it.
Yeah, my son, he said that he wanted to be a nurse, and so I said, hey, why don't you take the EMT class to start out with to just get a feel for what that's all about? And he did. And about 2 months into the program, they went out on a call where a young lady was delivering a baby. And he saw all that, and he changed his profession. So, yeah.
That's interesting. A lot of times it's car wrecks that change people that have a hard time dealing with the stress that is involved in responding in an ambulance. Sometimes
so it's just not for everybody.
It's just, I wouldn't do it. I'll represent them all day long, but I don't want to do what they do because it takes a special person.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Any other questions for this witness? See none. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here to testify for informational purposes? Anyone from the department? Anyone named Marty?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Dr. Marty Leathers. I'm the Director of Workforce Development for the state of Missouri. We're with my colleague, Leroy Wade, in the Department of Higher Education Workforce Development. Fast Track really has been a transformational program for the state of Missouri. And one thing you have to understand with the numbers, we were able to do this during a pandemic. And so during a pandemic, hundreds of Missourians were able to take advantage of the program. Unfortunately, the sunset that is now upon us has put us in a tough spot where, as the program's ramping up, as we are, finally getting through some of this pandemic constraints that we've had, students, adults, others are looking to get back into the workplace, and they're looking for programs like Fast Track to help them. I also oversee all the apprenticeship programs for the state of Missouri. I've long been a champion for expansion of registered apprenticeship programs. Missouri is proud to have been number 2 in the nation the last 2 years, and currently 3rd in the nation for a number of apprentices. And that doesn't just include the skilled trades. We have about 12,000 members of apprentices who are in the skilled trades, but we have another 4,000, 5,000 apprentices that are in non-trade sectors like healthcare, IT, the same programs that are the most popular of all the Fast Track programs. So by including apprenticeships, it just allows us an extra tool to help serve Missourians who want to go back to school, who want to further in their career and help be productive members of our society. So we appreciate your consideration of this.
Thank you very much for that. What questions do we have from the committee? I just want to talk real briefly and I had a really good question. I got sidetracked here. I can't remember what my question was, but I did want to just ask you a little bit about that apprenticeship side of things, because I know this is expanding that. How do you think that program, how is it going to interact with what you guys currently have in terms of the apprenticeships? Because we just expanded the apprenticeships. Obviously, it's working like gangbusters. It's really, really a tremendous program that you guys have implemented there. So how do you see this impacting what you've already created there?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So our success since 2016 on the apprenticeship expansion has been because we've go to the federal government and we've applied for competitive grants. So we've pulled down about $16 million since that time on competitive grants. So we're competing with other states to try to get those discretionary dollars from Department of Labor. This would allow us to, in addition to do that, which we don't know that the federal government will continue to make those programs available for us, and because you have to use state funds currently to support apprenticeships. This will allow another avenue for us to continue to sustain the expansion of apprenticeships, because fast track funds will be able to utilize the support apprentice. The other big part about this is, when you're in an apprenticeship program, sometimes you need to have a toolbox, or sometimes you need some work boots, or we have a lot of IT apprentices where we have to buy them laptops or tablets so they can actually go through the programs. Fast Track will put us in a position where we can provide those additional services and help pay for some of those things that right now honestly keep some people from entering those IT careers or those construction careers.
So you may have applicants right now that would go into the program but can't because of some of those smaller costs that are prohibitive to them.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay, thank you. Any other questions from the committee members? All right, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to testify for informational purposes? Seeing none, that will conclude our hearing on House Bill 2203, and we're going to move into House Bill 2131. Representative Healy, whenever you're ready.
Chairman Grier, Assistant Chair Riggs, and Ranking Minority Member Barnes, members of the committee, thank you so much for allowing me to present House Bill 2131 to you this morning. I would like to give you a brief summary of it and then entertain some questions. First of all, I'll tell you the background. This is a new bill. It hasn't been presented before in any form that I know of that affects cosmetology quite like this. I was approached by an individual that is a licensed cosmetologist that does a lot of in-home services and in nursing home or long-term care facilities. I'm a little bit familiar with this as my mother-in-law is in a long-term care facility, and one of the most important things that she looks forward to is a weekly hair appointment. Every single week, she has there's a lady that comes into her facility and fixes a number of the lady's hair, and it's extremely, extremely important to her to have that appointment. And during bad weather, if it's not being able to be kept, it disrupts her. So the individuals that come out and go to these places, right now, they're of course all licensed cosmetologists. They have to have a physical location as well. In fact, I believe, I'm not familiar with it exactly, but I think that they are required to do at least 51% of their business in a physical location, and then they can do some of this traveling business as well. The lady that visited with me about this said that, first of all, due to COVID, there's a definite increase in the desire of ladies for them to come to their home instead of for these older individuals to travel to a hair salon, and that her traveling business has greatly picked up and is exceeding what it should be, perhaps. She also said she was familiar with some other ladies that were wanting to basically retire and slow down and do this part-time and still remain a licensed cosmetologist. However, they were not able to do that without a physical location to have as their business base. So that brought about this bill, which would allow this to have some flexibility. As a friend of mine said, this is a freedom bill, and by no means is it to skirt around any kind of requirements legally for certification. That is not the intent. The intent is that they will be licensed cosmetologists. They will need to give, since they don't have a place of business to hang their certificate of license, they will need to present a copy of their certification from the Board of Cosmetology to the individuals that they service, and this will have their proof that they are up to date. They have the expiration date on it, their address, and any information that would be on a certificate of license would be available on this for them to present to their clients. So we want it all above board. It's not to skirt around anything else, just to give them a little more flexibility in this modern day where we do have it's a service world out there, and we want to provide this service to clients in the best way that we can, and sometimes it's not in the physical location. So that's a quick summary. At this time, I will entertain any questions.
Thank you, Representative. Do we have questions from the committee? Representative Johnson.
To inquire, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning, gentlemen?
Doing very well. How are you?
Good, good. when you brought this to my attention the other day, I automatically became in full support of it. I have a daughter who is a licensed barber, and she does have a brick and mortar, but now, especially during the pandemic, she's been saving up some of her money to purchase a Sprinter van to have a mobile barbershop. And we've seen this being done in some other states, and it's been very successful. To be able to go into the nursing homes, and then she, which is a big part of it as well. And then I think that it's important also, like you were saying, about, was it your mother-in-law?
Yes, my mother-in-law.
Okay, so this helps combat mental health as well, because when you are in a nursing home facility, or if you're at home during the pandemic and you can't necessarily get out because you're quarantining, or you prefer to be at home, this gives people an opportunity to have someone come into their home, a licensed professional, take care of them, and that actually lifts your spirit.
It does.
Knowing that someone cares enough about you to make that trip to you to take care of your hair, which, I mean, you got something that'll never leave is medical. We just talked about the EMTs, things like that, and then hair. People are going to always want to get something done to their hair. So I think that this is very, very important. And then my daughter also, she there's a homeless day camp called Hope Faith in Jackson County. My daughter became the instructor there. Now, in the process of doing so, she noticed that some of the people that couldn't make it to the camp, that were in a shelter, that she wanted to be able to go have her services utilized inside of those shelters as well. So I think that it's very important for us to give businesses like these an opportunity to reach out to the public and have their services occupied. So I would be in full support of that, and I'd also, if possible, I would co-sponsor this. This is a great bill.
Please, thank you. I appreciate your comments, and I applaud your daughter for the good services that she's providing.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Representative Baker?
To inquire, Mr. Chairman.
Proceed.
Thank you, sir. Morning.
Good morning.
You know, when you came to my office talking about this bill, I hadn't seen it yet, and I think you got about one sentence in, and I said, "Don't threaten me with a good time," right? So this, you know, look, I do have a couple questions though as I begin to think through this. What department handles the verification of this? Do they actually go out and check and see if people's addresses are an actual brick and mortar store? Do they have a person that actually does that?
Very good question. Thank you, Representative. Yes, it is handled by the Board of Cosmetology and Barber Examiners. There's yearly licensing fees, and there's inspections. And so that is the one thing this bill does not address, is how they can have an inspection. And I'm fully open to having something like that added to it, be it whether or not the cosmetologist would choose one of her clients that would be open to having someone come in and observe her during this process, see what she goes through, what kind of hygiene and what kind of precautions she takes to make sure that she follows all the procedures that she should, or he or she should. So I'm definitely in favor of doing everything that would be required in a brick and mortar business as they have this mobile business. So that may be something we need to add to it.
Well, and the reason why I asked is I think we have an opportunity here to possibly downsize state government a little bit, which I'm always for, as you well know. So, you know, if you've got a full-time FTE or two or however many it is that is going out and checking this, I think we could make it to where, again, people are making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, but there's a possibility here of lowering that cost to the state, and I think that's something that I'm always willing to explore. So I'd be happy to look into that. And I, you know, always looking for ways that we can remove burdensome regulations for business to be able to do their thing. This to me is business innovation, right? I mean, you heard it from the gentleman, that people are moving to mobile. It gives them the ability to lower their overhead and increase profit. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing for them. It's a good thing for the state. It's a good thing for everybody. So love your bill. Look forward to supporting that and moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to say that it provides that flexibility while those brick and mortar businesses that are currently providing the service, it really does not affect them. They can continue doing what they always have done. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee members? Ranking Member Barnes.
To inquire. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Great. Like I said, you approached me the other day with this bill, and like some of my colleagues said, it just lit up my eyes. I think it's a pretty good bill. Just maybe needs some, some little creaking, I guess. How about, when you have the physical location, you have what you said, what we talked about earlier, is inspections and stuff like that to make sure that you reporting your taxes and your income properly and all that good stuff. So with them going out to don't have a physical location and going from home to home to home, how would that be tracked? And is there
Well, thank you for your question. I could see maybe the Board of Cosmetology requiring a log to be kept, stating the date and the time and the location of the service, so that if they wanted to check on that, they could. And of course, it would all be taxable income.
Right.
So that would all need to be logged and maintained, and we want it all above board.
Right. And then another question about the inspection to make sure that they are, fulfilling their duties as a licensed person. And I know what Representative Baker said, you're always looking to cut. But I think if we start in a new business like this where people are going, not physical, I think we may need more people to inspect than less to inspect, because everyone is going to 100 homes instead of going to one physical address.
I see your concern. I'd like to think that we're talking about some, certified, honest individuals.
Absolutely.
And that they will maintain the integrity of their profession, and will definitely be all above board with it all.
Yeah, and not only that, I'm just saying it's not right away cut the staff, but in the future it could be cut, but you have to send a message when you start up something new that, hey, Uncle Sam want his portion of that, and I just want to make sure he get his.
Yes, thank you.
But no, I like your bill, and good luck to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Representative.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you. So we've made some pretty tremendous strides in terms of providing care to individuals outside of, the hospitals, in-home health care, telehealth. We've made some really tremendous strides, particularly in the last 2 years. Are you familiar enough with how some of those other services are handled and how the integrity of those services and the inspections and all that are handled, and whether the cosmetology requirements are more or less than what's required in other professions?
I appreciate your question, Representative. I think there's a comparison could be made between the in-home health care and this. The in-home health care probably is more closely regulated because it relates more to their physical well-being than their...
One would think. But then again, the hours of required training for a cosmetologist far exceed what some professions are.
That's true.
It gets a little wonky sometimes when we get into these occupational licensing issues. So
That's true.
One would think, but may not always be the case.
Yes. Well, I would like to see maybe some investigation into what those requirements are for their in-home care, and this could definitely follow along those lines.
Yeah, I would think if they're out of line, this could be an opportunity for us to check those.
Yes, great. Thanks.
Representative Johnson.
To inquire, Chairman.
Proceed.
Thank you. To piggyback off of what you just stated, my mother-in-law is in the process of getting a home nurse. being in an insurance background, I've been in the home when they would come in to check the residents. And I've also been at my daughter also is an instructor at a barber college and taking care of her own shop and trying to become a mobile barber as well. I've seen them come in their facility, very strict, very, very strict. They check the facility, they check their equipment, they check to make sure that they're sterilizing all of their equipment, and they're checking their log. So I think that they're both pretty much on the same page as far as from a medical standpoint, and with the cosmetologists as well. They kind of go through things with a fine tooth comb. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to try to make sure that they're both on the same page and that they're being looked at the same way
Yes.
as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Fine tooth comb.
Any other questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you, Representative.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any here to testify in favor? Come on, Heath. Are there any here opposed? For informational purposes. All right, there we go. Ding, ding, ding.
Official form. I signed it. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. That great Clips haircut looks really good on you. Heath Clarkston. I'm here representing the Missouri Association of Cosmetology Schools. Just visited with the bill sponsor. He kind of stole my thunder. A lot of the stuff I was going to tell you he just brought up. So it's a very short bill. Mr. Chairman, you know this statute probably as well or better than me. We've debated it for many years. I think there's a lot of things that you can say about the world's changing, right? Everything's a little different. I think we talked about with barbers years ago, a mobile process where they had their trucks, and I think that's probably something we need to look at with this bill. I would just urge two things to look at while you redraft the bill, whether Representative redrafts his bill. Is the intent is not to create a whole new ability for people to do this non-licensed. I know that's not the case, but I would definitely get with the licensing board or whoever you need to find out to make sure that they're comfortable with inspections of some sort. That's the point of having the whole board, is to make sure that health and public health is protected. And I think you could probably do that with some changes. I'm not aware of how to do it myself because I don't know exactly how their inspections work. But I do know that many cosmetologists work in nursing homes right now. The current law is on brick and mortar, it's 51%. So, if you have a facility, 49% of your time you can go work wherever. And then if you don't charge, obviously you can go anywhere you want if you're helping with a not-for-profit or I do also think, we can visit offline a little bit.
Could you say that last part one more time?
As long as you're not charging a customer, you can go and work at any, I have a friend that's a dentist that donates a lot of time here in town to the Samaritan Center and other, they can do that right now outside of their facility as long as they're not charging. It's when you...
Are there any inspections involved with that when they're doing those off-site, not for
No, I think they do have to follow through with some of this stuff on providing their license number and things like that, but as long as it's not the majority of the time. The real issue here that you come into goes back to the unlicensed activities. When you're in a salon, or I guess it's a cosmetology establishment, I think is the definition. When you're in a typical salon, a lot of the issues are the people working around you have to be under the supervision of a licensed cosmetologist, so they're not doing things beyond what they're trained to do. So I think that's part of the issue, is if you're not in a facility like that, or there are going to be people doing things unlicensed, and I think you can address that. I probably rambled too much, but love to work with anyone interested. Where the schools, this doesn't completely impact us, but we have a lot of students going into the marketplace doing things differently, and would love to be a part of the conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, Representative Boggs. Proceed.
So let's expound a little bit on this licensing. I've noticed you've mentioned that several times, and that's something that's always been something that's in my business. There's some things I can go, if I have $250, then I pay that and I have a license. It doesn't mean I can do any of that, but I have a license and therefore I can get a permit or whatnot. So take me through this real quick. So I guess the way I would start this question is, does anyone fail in getting licensed at these schools?
Yes, and in fact, the chairman of the committee had a bill several years ago that dealt with a lot of. We cleaned up the statute 5 or 6 years ago. There was a lot of people that were ineligible to get a license because of past criminal records and things like that. Yes, that has happened.
Okay,
and sometimes they start and then they have to come back several years later because life circumstances. They're.
Okay, so it's not just a deal of if you have $250, you end up.
No, absolutely not.
And then in the licensing, does then it require them to then have insurance?
I would assume, but I don't know that.
Because in some of my licensing, it's not just $250 or $500 or whatever, but it's the dollar plus the little tab showing that, like getting your car license, that you have insurance and then you have that. So I was just curious about that, whether or not that, because I'm kind of one of those of I'm always trying to figure out what licensing and loan licensing is. Is it just the dollars? And so, but of course, I don't have a hair problem, so I don't know anything about what I'm talking about. That's why I'm focusing on the licensing end, if you notice. So I think that's getting pretty close to answer my question. So the licensing does mean something in this
Absolutely.
profession.
And can I add one thing that when you asked the question on this too, there's another pathway besides going to school, and that's through being an apprentice. And many of the barbers do it that way. Barbers is a different statute than cosmetology, but you can go another route with apprenticeship.
Okay, yeah, and both of those are great. So that, I think that answers my question. I think it's a good bill. I'm always for anything that makes it easier. And then I'm with that. Just because you have a license, just because I've hired licensed people to do something for me, didn't make them good at it. And so I rely on the old-fashioned word of mouth. I've had a word of mouth business for over 30-some years, and including with my dad. But I didn't want to make myself older than I am. But I'm saying it's worked for him and it's working for me, that word of mouth. And so whether you're licensed or not licensed, that word follows you quickly. So if you do a great job, it means way more than a certificate of license from one person telling another. And so anyway, so you've answered my question. Licensing does mean something in this profession, and therefore that was the question that I really had. So thank you.
Welcome. We're traveling down a dangerous road here because this is one of my favorite subjects, and I could keep the committee here for much longer than they would like to be, talking about occupational licensing and what's appropriate in terms of hours of education and what goes into it. But certainly, I think we can all agree that it takes a lot more than $250 and showing up at the department to get a cosmetology license. And there's a lot more that goes into the licenses than just the cutting of hair. This incorporates, I forget the terminology, but nails and
estheticians.
Thank you very much. Yes. So there's a lot there, but I don't think we want to take the time to unpack that here. We're simply dealing with, being able to provide greater access and allowing these folks to be mobile and be able to get out to people that need the services. So as much as I would really love to dive into that and maybe tack on some fun stuff to this bill, I'm going to restrain myself. Are there any other questions for the witness here? Yes, Representative Johnson.
Just one more thing, Chairman. Back in the day, well, back in the day, your barber was your doctor. Yeah. To a certain extent. And God, thank God that we're past bloodletting and things of that nature. But
Yeah, that's the red and white.
Yes, sir. There it is.
Another day, Mr. Chairman.
So much here. Any other questions for our witness here, Mr. Clarkston?
Thank you
This
very
is it.
much.
We're letting him off the hook this easy, huh? All right. Yeah, you're welcome. Any other, anybody else here to testify for informational purposes? Do we want to? I think we'll end it there. Thank you all very much. That concludes our hearing on House Bill. Oh, what's the number on this one? 2131. And we're going to now move into, oh boy, probably the most interesting bill that any of you have ever heard this whole year. It's actually Resolution 3279. I'm going to turn it over to our vice chair here to take the reins while I present to you House Resolution 3279. You say.
All right, we will now take up H.R. 3279, Trade. Welcome, Mr. Chairman. You may proceed when ready.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It sure is a pleasure to be here with you all. Appreciate the opportunity to present this House resolution to you. You know, we've made a lot of progress over the last couple of years and spent a lot of time and energy focused on how to develop the trade relationships that we have with other states, but also across the pond in the UK and other places around the world. And we're at a really critical point right now. As many of you may know, Congress and the White House were in the process of negotiating and finalizing a free trade agreement. And it's of the utmost interest to me and should be to all of us and to our state to make sure that Missouri is best positioned to have a relationship that helps expand trade with Missouri. We already have a very robust relationship with the UK, and we have, you know, as the resolution actually states here, you know, we have over, I want to get it right here, I think it's over 50 specific UK companies that are currently in Missouri, and we have 25 Missouri companies that are in the United Kingdom. So that's a robust relationship. I mean, there's a significant number of dollars that are going into transactions and helping Missourians. And so the purpose of this resolution is threefold. First, it acknowledges the existing relationship that we have. And as many of you all know, and some of you are actually a member of this caucus, the Friends of the UK caucus here in the Missouri House is the first of its kind in the entire country. And that may not seem like a big deal to some people, but it certainly is a big deal to the United Kingdom. So much so that we had the Deputy Ambassador to the UK join us for one of our first inaugural meetings, which was really tremendous. And it has shown the support that we have for the UK in that relationship and that we want to continue that. And so the first purpose is to acknowledge that relationship. Second, it acknowledges the importance of Missouri in the negotiations of that free trade agreement at the national level. And what it does is it urges Congress to finalize that, to reduce barriers to trade, to create more of a free market environment that would increase Missouri exports to the United Kingdom. And then thirdly, it broadly outlines some ideas of how we can move forward in that relationship and do some other things that we're in discussions about with them, other ways to open up trade and the services and the trade of services back and forth. So for instance, one idea that we've been tossing around is how can we allow our doctors and physicians, our lawyers, our engineers to go and work in the UK? And how can we allow some of their folks to come here if there's a project or there's a need for that here in Missouri? So we're looking at lots of different ideas, but this essentially is, you know, the House is basically acknowledging those things, as encouraging Congress to move forward with this free trade agreement with Missouri top of mind. And that really is the whole point of this. There's going to be a small amendment, I have to tell you, to this. In drafting it, we included a copy going to everybody, to the speaker or the governor. I'm sorry, not the governor. That's what we're talking about here. It goes to Congress. It goes to the President of the United States. It goes to the Senate. But we forgot the governor, so we need to add the governor back on here. So I'm going to make an amendment next week to make sure that a copy of this goes to our governor as well. So with that, I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Thank you for that sterling presentation. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative Gunby.
To inquire. Good morning. Do we have any other resolutions like this with any other countries?
Not like this that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just first of its kind.
There have been other resolutions in the past with trade. In fact, I had one with Israel. I think it was my first year in the House that we discussed and passed out of the House there. And, it's just an acknowledgement of that relationship. And it helps those other countries to kind of see that we're serious about that commitment. And it brings us top of mind a lot of times.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you. Would you say that the relationship between Missouri and UK would be pretty much the most robust relationship we have with another country?
I would say it is certainly very, very robust.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Representative Barnes.
To inquire.
Proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
UK. How long has the United States and the UK been in negotiations for a free trade agreement?
On this particular free trade agreement, gentlemen, I don't know the specific timeline. I know it's been in the works, for quite some time.
Quite some time.
Probably a year or more.
2020?
I believe
2019,
so.
somewhere around in there.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about time we got it finalized, I think.
So we do exports and imports from UK right now, back and forth stuff.
You do exports.
Yeah. And so does UK have any type of trade agreement with any state in the United States?
Well, the FTA that we're talking about is the national level agreement. So no, to my knowledge, none of those individual ones have been finalized. It's all part of one giant free trade agreement. Yeah.
Okay, so no agreement has been signed for a state or for the United States.
That's my understanding. Correct.
Okay,
yes.
great. And so do you know the GPA of UK?
The GPA?
Is it the GPA or is it
the GDP?
GDP. Yeah.
The overall gross domestic product. No,
Right.
I don't know that number offhand. Sir.
Okay. So what made you come up with this? How did you just thought of it or?
There's probably some funny, pithy comment I could make about how smart I am, but we all know that's not true. The Friends of the United Kingdom Caucus, we started that last year, and we have, been developing this. We have a special relationship with the UK, right? The United States does, but Missouri in particular has spent a lot of time and energy developing that. And so as we were discussing what are some ways that we can continue to make that relationship more robust, this was one of the ideas that came out of those conversations. So the caucus had met, we talked to the deputy ambassador, and these relationships, you kind of take incremental steps, right?
Right.
Anytime you're dealing with another country, we've got to be careful as Missouri that we're not overstepping what are kind of the bounds of what we have to do here. But certainly in this case, this is very helpful. It will be very helpful in solidifying that and continuing to show companies, both in the UK and the US, that Missouri is a very special place in the United States to do business, and that we have a lot to offer here.
Now, I tried to read something quick, fast, and hurry on this last night, and I read somewhere Trump wanted to make sure that he opened that up to start the new trade agreement. Is that true, or you know anything about that?
I don't know where the impetus came from, but certainly a free trade agreement is not something that's specific to any one person. I mean, we have free trade agreements that have been in place for quite a long time with a lot of different countries, and we've done this quite a bit in our country, right? And certainly the start of our special relationship goes all the way back to Winston Churchill and some of our folks here, and so it's a long developed relationship that we're talking about.
I read something that says October 16, 2018, the Trump administration noticed Congress that the president intends to negotiate a trade agreement with UK once it leaves the European Union.
Yes,
So,
yes.
And so that's
Yes.
that's what started.
Well, certainly it was very timely.
Yeah,
Yes, I mean,
very timely.
absolutely. I mean, that was because they're now not part of
right.
That we do have to have something in place with them, I think, and it's about time that we kind of finalize some of the details on that.
So no, I try to do my homework a little taste. They're quick, but it's a lot of foreign stuff, and so, but no, it's not a bad bill. Not a bad resolution. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that overwhelming support.
Are there any other questions from committee members? Seeing none, is there anyone here to testify in favor? Seeing none, anybody here to testify in opposition? Seeing none, anyone here to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none, no further business. This concludes the hearing on HR 3279. Thank you. No further business before the committee. We are adjourned. Thank you.